everyone. I have the pleasure to have with me Mark Willard, who's the VP of Enterprise Pricing and Small and Medium-Sized Businesses Pricing at Frontier Communications. Thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
And yeah, maybe for everyone who doesn't know Frontier Communications, if you could just give a brief overview of the company and in particular how pricing fits into that equation.
Well, Frontier is a telecommunications company that in the United States, and we have properties in 25 states, and our annual revenue is around $6 billion. And we provide these days, in addition to traditional telephony, uh, uh, broadband internet service and data services generally. And as you said, I'm responsible for enterprise and small business pricing. And where pricing fits in the organization is I report to the senior VP of product management in the commercial channel.
And how long have you been in pricing and what got you into pricing in the first place?
I've been in pricing for 33 years in telecommunications, various companies. And I think what got me, my background is in economics. And I got my first job in the industry for Sprint in Kansas City. And I think what got me in is the fact that pricing is basically applied economics, and that's what attracted me. And so I was fortunate enough to get a job in the pricing department at Sprint, and I've been in pricing pretty much since then.
Awesome. And what were some of the key challenges in your career at Frontier that you've been able to solve when it comes to pricing?
Well, one that comes to mind is with we have a product called Ethernet, and Ethernet is basically IP-based data
Mhm.
connections, different throughput. And one of the things we had to do is that we like I said, we're in 25 states, and we have different competitors in different locations. And when I got the assignment for commercial pricing, we had one set of rates nationwide, but we had different competitors with different
Mhm.
rate structures. And so the standard rates that we had, although we do negotiate individual deals, the standard rates, uh, in some markets we would be not competitive enough. In some markets we would leave money on the table.
Right.
And so I developed the averaged rates. So now we have five geographic rate groups that are based upon the key competitor geographically. And so, for example, the Tampa MSA, Tampa is one of our larger markets, Tampa, Florida, who just went through their hurricane and has a set of rates that are benchmarked against the competitor that's there,
Mhm.
which is different than the rates we have, for example, in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which who has different competition.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So that was uh, I think, a significant change that we were able to implement, and now we've had that for about 2 years, and it's
Oh,
works well.
yeah. So really getting into price differentiation here.
Yeah.
Excellent. Were there any kind of learnings that you had along the way, pricing bloopers, I would call them, kind of tried and failed attempts, learnings that your organizations had as you went through your pricing journey?
Well, one that I can remember is I had a small consulting practice for about 10 years,
Mhm.
and we worked primarily with small telecommunications providers in the United States, and we did one of the things that we did was market surveys and phone-based surveys of their
Yeah.
customers, and I helped develop residential bundles for them, bundles of broadband internet with telephony and so forth. And we did the first uh, survey, and it was a phone-based survey. And the company that we used was out of Austin, Texas, and this telephone company was in Georgia.
Hmm.
They were a small provider in a community in Georgia. And I get this call in the morning after we had began the survey, and it was the general manager of the company, and he was very upset because his customers have been calling in saying that they've been getting prank calls from someplace in Austin, Texas. And it turns out that they were using an auto dialer. And so what happens is, which a lot of that time when you get a call from someone's trying to sell you something and so forth, and you pick up and there's nobody there right away, and it takes about 3 seconds or so before you're connected to somebody, and so that's using an auto dialer
Uh-huh.
so that they don't have to have as many lines. And so people were getting the call, and they weren't waiting for somebody to come onto the line, and so they'd hang up, and then they'd call back, and they'd hang up. And so they thought they were getting prank calls. And so I learned that we could not do surveys with an auto dialer. So after that, when we did surveys, they were always directly connected.
In person.
But that's, for about a day, that was a mess. And, now I kind of laugh at it.
Interesting. Okay. How does, and a little bit of a change of topic here, but how does inflation affect your company, and how does it also impact your work as a pricer?
Well, inflation affects, our cost like it has with everybody. Everything from, we have fuel cost, we have, a fleet of service vehicles and things. We have equipment that we purchase, lots of routers and so forth, and so the chip shortage has affected us, and we've had limited supplies of some key equipment that has cost us some business, and or at least delayed business. So we've been affected like everyone has with higher costs. Now, when it comes to recovering those costs in our prices, we're in a very competitive business, and we don't have the luxury generally in our acquisition prices to be able to pass through cost increases. And we are smaller usually than our main competitors, and so we can't establish ourselves, although we'd like to, in a position of price leadership. We're largely a follower, and so we have to absorb those costs. Now, what we try to do is sell higher throughput at higher prices in order to manage our revenue per user.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been limited in terms of inflation adjustments and so forth that we're able to do directly.
Yeah, so if price increase is such a challenge, are there any other measures your organization has taken in order to bring rates up, or to grow the top line in another way to combat cost increase? What are there any?
Well, we do price increases on what we call legacy services.
Mm-hmm.
And that is true throughout the industry. So while we have some products, particularly internet-related products, where competition is very severe, we have old traditional telephony products where customers who still utilize the obsolete technology, and there's quite a few of them that still have old-fashioned telephones, pay higher rates.
Mm-hmm.
As we recover our cost increases through increases in those rates. And so we do one of the jobs in my organization is to develop an annual pricing plan that generates incremental revenue from targeted rate increases for legacy products.
Right. So ultimately getting into price differentiation again, being a bit more granular, look into customer segments that can take a higher increase than others, for example, because they use old school technology. Yeah, very interesting. Um, Again, shifting gears a little bit, and would like to talk about pricing organization. How are you currently structured? So how many people actually take care of pricing in your organization? How large is the team?
In my group, we have about 10 people. We have 10 people,
Hmm.
and we have a commercial deal desk that we run. So pricing on a lot of products, and particularly data products, are negotiable ultimately. And so I've got 5 people that work on that completely, and then I have 4 people, and then myself as a fifth, and I work on the commercial deal desk too, uh, that do standard pricing in terms of setting our base rates and pricing for new products that we introduce. Uh, and I have one person that works exclusively on small business products.
Right.
So that's how we're organized. Like I said, you know, my experience, pricing groups are usually reported either through product management or through finance.
Hmm.
And we report through product management. And I've done both in my career, and I prefer the arrangement more because it's more focused on value based pricing.
As it should be.
Yeah, as it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. What advice would you give companies that are not starting with 10 people, which is already a quite sizable pricing department for most companies? It's probably still too small for the size of the business that you have to manage.
I think so.
But yeah, so our rule of thumb typically is for every 100 million in revenue, you would want to have one FTE that actually takes full-time care of pricing. So with that rule of thumb, you would have still significant leeway. But if somebody's actually starting from scratch and trying to build a pricing organization in their company, what advice would you give them? How to start? How to actually grow to a size of 10 people or more? How to do that?
Well, I think the first thing is to establish the relationships with executives that you need. So identify who in the company are the key stakeholders, and that usually is the whoever's in charge of finance, the CFO or senior VP of finance, somebody in product development,
Right.
product management, the senior person in sales, yeah, or and sometimes operations are key. You've got to enlist their support, and sometimes you have to convince them that they need a pricing organization.
How do you do that?
Well, you need to get a champion
Uh-huh.
that believes that they need a pricing organization. That's usually the person who hires you.
Yeah.
And then the others, that takes time, and you have to convince them that they will be more successful if they let you do your thing than if they don't. And for example, as far as sales are concerned, you need to be able to demonstrate that you're going to help them make their numbers, not hinder that.
And I would also assume either create business cases or actual success stories of first
Yeah,
efforts in pricing, right? It's you have to show the numbers.
yeah. You bring the background with you, and usually you end up like you have one champion
Mm-hmm.
who helps you manage up, and then you develop those relationships with that person's peers. And you have to step out of the shadows,
Right.
and then when they see results, uh, one of the things that I'm proud of at Frontier is that we have a product called dedicated internet access, which we sell quite a bit of in the enterprise space, which are enterprise grade internet connectivity with service level agreements and so forth. And we're growing faster than the industry, but our ARPU is our revenue per unit is stable. So we've been able to grow without
Gain share without
gain share,
giving up. profitability. Yeah,
proportionate decrease in home loan price level.
fantastic.
And so you show things like that,
Uh-huh.
and then that gives you some credibility.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's, it's a lot of it is about relationships, and then actually, once you've given the opportunity, then you go and produce.
Have to produce.
And you're not going to get resources as quickly as you'd like.
Yeah.
So you have to be patient,
Yeah.
and over time, you'll get more resources.
Interesting. Okay. So I have one last question for you, which is, if you go back to the beginning of your career in pricing, what advice would you give yourself? Or rather, what advice would you also give other folks that just start their career in pricing right now? Things you wish you would have known back then.
The younger me, I would have said, do something about your hair before it's too late. But that aside, I think the importance of listening to your stakeholders
Uh-huh.
and making an effort directly to show and demonstrate that you are listening to their needs, that you don't, know everything they're, about how we should price and so forth. Patience, uh, managing downward as well as managing up.
Mm-hmm.
The importance of bringing good people in the organization and keeping them, and making sure that they stay happy.
Right.
I think those are kind of key things. I think the analytical ability is your background and so forth. You lots of people I think can do that the analytical work. It's the human relationships and so forth where I think some people struggle.
Got it. Thank you so much. I think this was very valuable advice. I really appreciate you making the time, and yeah,
Thanks
thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you very much.